writing is something that you need to kind of focus on, find time without interruptions for several days, preferably several weeks when thinking about the story as a whole. So for Alan Wake, for example, I spent a few weeks of the project locked away in a cabin by a lake to get peace and quiet and write it, and also to get a feel of the proper stage of cabin fever that Alan Wake is going through. Writing a psychological thriller like Alan Wake has its own challenges. We knew that we wanted to make a thriller. It's a very important part of what Alan Wake is. We didn't want to go into horror or fantasy or science fiction in the sense of having these large monsters coming at you. We wanted to kind of leave that ambiguity in there, and with a psychological thriller there's always this question, what is real and what is not, and how much of this is the main character just imagining or hallucinating or dreaming up. You can't take shortcuts with the story, and you can't cheat. There has to be a good reason for why this is happening, and you need to keep feeding the audience bits and pieces that are really relevant. You can't answer too many questions, but you need to answer just enough so that it leaves things open all the time and keeps them wanting for more. Sources of inspiration have naturally been TV series. Twin Peaks is one obvious thing that was a source of inspiration for us. Lost, we are big fans of the storytelling and the different kind of pop culture aspects of Lost. And naturally, for me personally, there are many books that I draw inspiration from. This is a very Stephen King kind of a story with the writer as a main character. We have strong supernatural elements in the game, but we have been trying to use them in a fashion that makes this kind of a psychological thriller in a sense. And we also wanted to bring a more realistic real-world angle to the whole game. We have a married couple who have problems with their marriage, and we have a idyllic small town with quirky town folks, things that you normally don't see in video games. And these are the elements that we wanted to bring into the mix.
That really is very much the Remedy formula, that we take something that's familiar to the audience from different forms of media, but really new in video games. And I think, you know, it is original, but there's certain things that you kind of recognize and they're familiar and comfortable, but really new in video games.
For instance, in Max Payne, slow motion is a theme which is in Hong Kong movies a recurring theme. How can that be a gameplay element? Whereas light or lack of it, darkness, these atavistic fears that you might get is another theme that everybody can sort of relate to, and how can you make that kind of elements a part of your game?
We didn't want to have an action hero as the main character, because that's basically what every action title out there is doing. We wanted an everyman who grows into this role. And that's where kind of the idea of using a writer as the main character came from. I think that every writer puts himself into the story as a whole. I mean, but this is fiction, and this is pretty far out there. So can't really say that there would be that much real connections. I mean, there are small bits. Naturally, you kind of use your own past experience and history. Things like we have a old battered light switch that used to be Alan Wake's childhood toy that now has mystical properties, and by chance as a kid I used to have an old battered light switch, the clicker, as a toy.
He's a normal person thrust into an extraordinary situation. He's more of a classic hero than maybe a video game hero. So there's the challenges there of making him feel like a normal person.
He's a person that you can believe that is real and could exist in other media outside of games as well.
He's a bit like you and I. He's not a superhero. He's not, he doesn't have any special powers. He's just a guy that uses his wits and smart thinking to get through the challenges that face him.
As an actor, it's a great character. It's like every actor wants a dark, a troubled, kind of a searching character to play. And this is one of those characters. It's as good as any movie script I've read, and I'm talking about movies that I've not been in. I'm talking about, like, you know, it's really A-list writing. I think the writing is really sharp, and the story is sharp.
All games need opposition, and opposition for Alan Wake was one of the toughest things to nail in this game. We went through quite a bit of versions of the Takens. One of the problems there was that style-wise, we want to be in that thriller movie area where you can't use fantastic elements so much. You want to keep it personal, inside your head kind of thing. Did I just see something on that guy? Was he moving? His head is maybe spinning. Am I imagining things? That kind of realm. When we started from thinking this almost supernatural kind of classical enemy in these types of films, I know what you did last summer, kind of a type who doesn't talk much, you never see their faces, you don't understand why they are after you, but the plain truth is that they are, and in order to survive you have to do your best.
The Taken are supposed to be a very creepy kind of enemy. You don't really know what they are. They sort of represent the unknown in a way, and they should be similar to reality, but not quite there.
We didn't want to have too much science fiction, too much supernatural, but on the other hand, we felt it had to be real world but slightly off. So it took a lot of iteration, a lot of work to make sure that we nailed it in terms of them being human taken over by this dark presence, yet something malignant and dangerous.
We just grabbed some access, went out on the backyard and tried to be scary and tried to go crazy, and took a lot of reference videos with our cameras. And went from that, a lot of iterations. We found out that we need different types of Takens. We have this small, fast guy that comes and stab you with a knife in the back, and of course the big guy with a sledgehammer coming and smashing up everything.
We had like long talks on how the enemy should look like, how they should work, and so on. And what we ended up with finally was that the darkness really isn't like an entity on the screen that actively does something against Wake, but it manipulates the surroundings. And it takes control of different entities and things that can be found in the darkness. So this can be seen in our different enemy types, like the Taken. They are basically humans that have been taken over. The Poltergeist, that are like inanimate objects that are being possessed.
There were accidents along the way. Things like how our poltergeist objects and poltergeist doors came to be. It was really an accident. Having these certain type of physics bugs in the game at one point where an object would be violently throwing itself around, and seeing that, it just felt really unpredictable and scary, and those were kind of the first things that led to having poltergeist objects in the game.
Yeah, actually, because there were physics bugs and the player is a physical entity, because they were trembling so enormously fast, when you hit them,
they were deadly.
They were deadly, so actually you were pretty scared of them.
All the enemies that we have in the game needed to reflect the same thing that all of them reflect, the same visual effect. And behind all this was, of course, Barbara Jagger, who was controlling the dark presence.
The face of our antagonist, Barbara Jagger, has an echo of Slavic witch Baba Yaga in her, and the cabin where this all takes place is called the Birdleg cabin, which is a reference to Baba Yaga as well. There are kind of references to mythology and folklore. Mainly I feel that they are very useful archetypes that the characters and stories found from old folklore are very much present in today's fiction as well, and they have a lot of meaning packed into them.
The forest city boy, how does the forest appear? That's very inbuilt fear probably for all people who still carry this like ancient feel of dark forest and wish to go to the campfire and did that move. What was that? Like everybody can imagine if fear takes the better of you when you're alone in woods, how you start thinking that all the environment seems to be alive, and sometimes in our game it really is alive, and how there's an axe murderer hiding probably behind each tree. With Alan Wake, the Pacific Northwest is basically the real deal, but it's subjective interpretation of Pacific Northwest. The trees, the machinery, big things are slightly bigger, certain things which are dark are slightly darker, and to bring out that feeling of pressure, the hostile environment. There's quite a lot of fog in Pacific Northwest, especially in the autumn time, which is the time when Wake and Alice are here at Bright Falls area. The fog draws out the silhouettes of the environment, the ferns, the spruce trees. So when you go close, you realize this is a spruce tree, but when you go further up, it's like a layered silhouettes of objects which emerge from the fog, and that also brings more sort of claustrophobic feel, how the forest like is pressing on you.
We wanted to bring up the psychological side. In the darkness, all the nightmares and the horrors come true, and when you get back into the light, it all seems to vanish away, and it's once again calm. So this is like this emotional step when you get into the light, and then when you go away from the light again, all the horrors and the nightmares come back. To me, light is like safety, order, something that you can understand. Darkness is the unknown that you don't know about, and you're quite sure what's happening there. It's chaos. This can be seen in the Poltergeist, in the Bet's effect, in the Shadow Shields, in all of the main pieces that we have in the game.
We wanted to convey the intrigue, the suspense, and make the player emotionally involved and motivated to take Alan Wake to his destiny, to see what happens to him, and hopefully help him to solve the mystery of his missing wife, solve the mystery of this town of Bright Falls. What does it all mean, and how can this all be?